Hey there, so tonight, we're stepping straight into the tightly laced, meticulously mannered world of Victorian England circa 1850. Imagine waking up not to your phone alarm, but to the clatter of horse-drawn carriages on soot-streaked cobblestones. Your breath shallow from a corset laced just tight enough to make conversation feel like a workout, and your entire day governed by a rule book so strict, one wrong glance could ruin your reputation forever. Trust me, these people turned everyday life into a high-stakes performance. And yet, beneath all that restraint, there was longing, romance, quiet rebellion. And yes, love, blooming in the tiniest cracks of propriety. Over the next little while we lines follow one young woman's journey through 7 defining moments of Victorian life, from her chilly morning wake-up to her wedding night, each one revealing how love, class, and social survival intertwined in this astonishingly rigid world. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world, whether you sipping tea in Tokyo at dawn or winding down in Buenos Aires past midnight. Alright, let's draw back the velvet curtains and step into 1850. Section 1. Waking in Victorian London. Hey there. So tonight, we're stepping straight into the tightly laced, meticulously mannered world of Victorian England circa 1850. And we're not just observing from the outside. We're waking up inside it, right now. In this very moment, your eyes blink open not to the soft glow of a sunrise through sheer curtains, but to the dim, soot-streaked grey of a London winter morning. You're lying in a narrow iron bed frame, the mattress beneath you stuffed not with memory foam, but with horsehair, prickly, lumpy, and unforgiving. The room is cold, bone-deep cold. The fire that crackled in the grate last night has long since died to a bed of glowing embers, casting just enough light to outline the shadows of your surroundings. A bulky wardrobe, a washstand with a chipped ceramic basin, a dressing table crowned with a small, smudged mirror. Outside, the city stirs, carriage wheels clatter over cobblestones, a dog barks in the distance, and the ever-present scent of coal smoke seeps through every crack in the window frame, mingling with the faint, sharp citrus of bergamot oil from the perfume bottle on your nightstand. This is London, and this is your life now. You reach for the small bell on your bedside table and give it a gentle ring. Almost instantly, footsteps echo on the stairs. The door opens, and Mary, your maid, appears already fully dressed in her neat black and white uniform, despite the early hour. "Good morning, miss," she says with a small curtsy. Without waiting for your reply, she crosses to the window and draws back the heavy velvet drapes. Weak, grey daylight floods in, revealing glass smeared with soot from the 1,000 chimneys that belch smoke into the sky above the city. "What would you like to wear today, miss?" she asks, already moving toward the wardrobe. And here's where your real education begins, because what you wear today will dictate how the world sees you, not just your fashion sense, but your virtue, your family's standing, even your moral character. In 1850, clothing isn't just fabric, it's a language, and you're about to speak it fluently. Mary selects a deep blue day dress, but before it even touches your skin, there's a ritual. First comes the chemise, a long cotton slip that brushes your ankles. Then, the corset. Oh, the corset. Mary wraps it around your torso and begins to pull the laces tighter, much tighter. "Remember," she says gently, "a proper lady's waist should be spannable by 2 hands." You gasp as your ribs compress, your lungs shrinking to half their size. This isn't just fashion, it's discipline. Fashion is suffering, and suffering is fashion. Next, petticoats, 1, 2, 3 each, adding bulk to your hips. Then the crinoline, that cage of steel hoops that transforms your silhouette into a bell-shaped monument to propriety. Finally, the dress itself, tight at the bodice, enormous at the skirt, weighing nearly 15 pounds in total. By the time Mary finishes pinning your hair into a severe, fly-away free bun, and asks whether you'll wear gloves or mittens today, you've already spent an hour just getting dressed, And you haven't even left your bedroom. Because in Victorian England, a lady never shows her bare hands in public, not ever. It's not about modesty in the way we think of it, it's about mystery, control, and the unspoken rule that a woman's body is not hers to display. So you choose gloves, always gloves, and when Mary hands you your handkerchief, you dab it with just a whisper of bergamot oil, never perfume. Queen Victoria herself declared heavy scents vulgar. You must smell clean, not alluring. Attraction is dangerous, desire is disorderly, and disorder has no place in a proper drawing room. Fully armoured in layers of silk, steel, and social expectation, you make your way downstairs. The house hums with quiet industry servants polishing silver, dusting shelves, stoking fires. In the dining room, your father sits at the head of the table, newspaper raised like a shield. Your mother is at the far end, pen in hand, already writing morning correspondence. Both are in full daytime dress because Victorians would never dream of appearing at breakfast in anything resembling casual attire. You take your seat. Good morning, you say. Your father lowers his paper, just enough to nod, then raises it again. No hugs, no kisses. Public displays of affection even among family are unthinkable. Breakfast is substantial: eggs, bacon, kidneys, toast, porridge. But your corset allows only tiny, ladylike bites. As you pick at your plate, your mother speaks without looking up. Remember, Jane Mrs. Hartley's daughter has just become engaged. Be sure to congratulate her, but don't ask for details. That would be presumptuous, you nod. Another rule logged in the invisible ledger of Victorian life. You may acknowledge joy, but never pry into it. Curiosity is vulgar. Interest is immodest, and emotion must be managed like a fire in a grate, warm enough to be useful, never wild enough to burn. And so, before you've even finished your tea, you've already navigated a dozen silent codes about dress, posture, speech, and restraint. This is just one morning, just the first act in a day governed by a social rulebook so complex, so unforgiving, that one misstep could mean social ruin. But here's the strange thing: beneath all this rigidity, there's a kind of comfort in knowing exactly what's expected, in the rhythm of ritual, in the certainty that, if you follow the rules exactly, you'll be safe, respected, marriageable. As you sip your tea, corset digging into your ribs, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the polished silver teapot, poised, controlled, perfectly proper. And you wonder just for a second if anyone can see the girl underneath, the one who's already tired, and already dreaming of kind eyes and a voice that says your name if it matters. But that's a thought for later. For now, you smooth your skirts, straighten your spine, and prepare for your morning call, which, of course, happens in the afternoon. Because in 1850, nothing is quite what it seems, and everything is a performance. Section 2. The ritual of the morning call. So you've survived breakfast. Corset laced, gloves on, emotions neatly tucked away like spare handkerchiefs in a reticule. But your day is far from over. In fact, the real performance is just beginning. Because right now, precisely at 11:15, you're about to step out the front door and into one of the most peculiar, paradoxical, and precisely choreographed rituals of Victorian life: the morning call. Yes, morning call. Don't let the name fool you. These visits never happen in the morning, not even close. They take place between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, a fact that makes absolutely no sense unless you understand that Victorian society thrived on contradictions. Call them afternoon calls, and people will look at you like you've just suggested wearing trousers to church. No, it's always morning calls, even when the sun is sinking and the gas lamps are flickering to life. You slip into your walking dress, a deep blue wool with a high neckline and modest trim, and fasten your cloak. Your bonnet is secured with pins that feel like tiny anchors holding your dignity in place. Mary hands you your gloves, always gloves, your small card case essential, and your parasol, not for sun, but for pasture. A Victorian lady never slouches, and the parasol gives you something elegant to hold, while you stand perfectly still and say almost nothing. And off you go with your mother, of course. Because you would never, ever make a social call alone. Not unless you wanted your name whispered behind feathered fans for the next decade. Now, here is the first rule of walking like a proper Victorian lady. You do not walk quickly. Speed suggests eagerness, eagerness suggests desperation. And desperation, that's social suicide. So you adopt the lady's pace, small, measured steps, back straight as a ruler, chin level, eyes modestly downcast. Your enormous crinoline sways like a bell with every movement, occasionally threatening to knock over a stray terrier or a small child who's wandered too close. Men on the street tip their hats as you pass. You acknowledge them with the faintest dip of your chin, never eye contact, never a smile. Strangers do not speak to you, and you certainly do not speak to them. In this world, silence isn't awkward, it's armor. You arrive at Mrs. Hartley's townhouse at exactly 11 a.m., which, again, is not morning, but never mind. Punctuality is non-negotiable. Arriving early implies you have nothing better to do. Arriving late implies you think your time is more valuable than hers. Both are equally offensive. The butler opens the door before you've even lifted the knocker because, of course, he has. He's been watching from the window. You hand him your visiting cards. One for yourself, one for your mother. These small pieces of engraved paper are your social passports. No card, no entry. It's that simple. He takes them on a silver tray because everything in a respectable household is done with silver, and disappears into the drawing room. A moment later, he returns. Mrs. Hartley will receive you inside. The air is warm and faintly scented with beeswax and lavender. Mrs. Hartley and her daughter Charlotte rise as you enter. Everyone curtsies. No hugs, no cheek kisses. Physical contact is reserved for the lower classes or for moments of extreme crisis, like funerals or shipwrecks. You settle onto the edge of a delicate sofa, arranging your crinoline with the precision of a stagehand setting a prop. Sitting fully back would crush the steel hoops and suggest you're too comfortable, which is unthinkable. How kind of you to call, Mrs. Hartley says, her voice smooth as porcelain. Your mother responds with equal polish. We were so pleased to hear your happy news. Charlotte blushes just enough to be proper and murmurs, "Thank you, Mr. Edwards is very kind." And that's it. That's the entire announcement of her engagement. No details, no date, no gushing about love or plans, or whether he makes her laugh. Those questions would be prying, and Victorians do not pry. Curiosity is vulgar. Interest is immodest. You acknowledge life's milestones like you're reading a weather report, factual, neutral, and utterly devoid of emotion. The conversation pivots immediately to safe ground. The weather, cloudy, but not raining. A recent sermon uplifting, though not overly long. A musical evening you all attended, accomplished, but not showy. Everything is described in the mildest possible terms. Strong opinions. Reserved for servants and radicals. Enthusiasm. The province of children and Americans. You sip tea from a bone china cup, careful not to clink the spoon. You take one small cake, never two. You laugh softly at a mildly amusing remark, but never throw your head back, and all the while you're counting the minutes in your head. Because a morning call lasts exactly 15 minutes, not 14, not 16, 15. Overstay, and you're greedy for attention. Leave early, and you're rude. Your mother gives the tiniest nod, her signal that time is up. You both rise as one. It was so lovely to see you, Mrs. Hartley says, already moving toward the door. Do give our regards to Mr. Edwards. Your mother adds a final, perfectly calibrated nod to Charlotte's new status. More curtsies, more pleasantries, and then you're back on the street, the fog curling around your boots like a ghost of propriety. That went well, your mother says as you begin the walk home. Charlotte looked well, you reply, and in Victorian code, that's high praise indeed. Well means healthy, composed, properly behaved, everything a young lady should be. Back at home, you remove your bonnet, smooth your skirts, and exhale just slightly. Another social minefield navigated. No missteps, no awkward silences, no accidental revelations. You've upheld the family name, reinforced your place in society, and confirmed that Charlotte Hartley is, indeed, well, it's exhausting, it's absurd, and yet, there's a strange rhythm to it, a comfort in the certainty. In a world where so much is hidden, feelings, desires, even the shape of your own body, beneath layers of silk and steel, the rules give you something to hold on to. They tell you exactly how to stand, what to say, when to leave, but here is the quiet truth: no one speaks aloud. These calls aren't really about friendship. They're about surveillance, about status, about proving, again and again, that you belong. And tomorrow, you'll do it all over again. Because in 1850, your reputation isn't built in grand gestures, it's stitched together, one perfectly timed, 15-minute visit at a time. Section 3. A day of propriety and restraint. So you've returned from your morning call with Mrs. Hartley. The 15 minutes are up. The gloves are still on, the corset still digging into your ribs like a constant reminder. You are being watched. You are being judged. You must never slip. But the performance isn't over, not even close. Because in Victorian England, a lady is never idle. Not for a single moment. Idleness isn't laziness, it's moral danger. Idle hands, your mother always says, are the devil's workshop. And so, the moment you step back into your drawing room, you settle yourself by the window with a piece of linen stretched in an embroidery hoop and a needle threaded with pale green silk. You begin to stitch delicate roses along the edge of a handkerchief. No grand design, nothing too bold, just enough to show refinement, diligence, and feminine grace. This is your first quiet act of the afternoon, needlework with your mother, side by side in companionable silence. She's mending a lace collar, you're crafting beauty from thread. It's not just a pastime, it's proof you're a woman of virtue, discipline, and domestic readiness. Every stitch is a stitch toward marriageability. And then, almost casually, as if mentioning the weather, your mother says it. I saw Mrs. Fairchild yesterday. Her son has returned from university. Your needle stills, just for a fraction of a second. But your heart leaps. Thomas Fairchild. The name alone sends a quiet current through you. You remember him from last season's ball, tall, steady, with eyes that didn't dart around the room at most young men's, but stayed fixed on yours. And he hadn't stepped on your feet. In a world where dancing is a minefield of missteps and sweaty palms, that alone made him remarkable. You keep your gaze on your embroidery. Your voice, when it comes, is perfectly neutral. How nice. But your mother isn't fooled. She watches you over the rim of her teacup as she adds, softly, she mentioned. He asked after you. Now your cheeks warm, but you don't look up. You take a slow breath. You make another stitch, perfectly even, perfectly controlled. Did he? That's very civil of him. And that's the end of it. No gushing, no questions. No, what did he say? Did he smile? Does he remember my name? Because in this world, showing interest is the fastest way to lose it. A proper young lady is like a rare bird admired from a distance, never chased. If you flutter too eagerly toward the light, you're no longer mysterious. You're desperate, and desperation is social death. So you bury the flutter in your chest beneath another layer of restraint. But you tuck his name away, Thomas Fairchild, like a secret pressed between the pages of a book only you can read. Later that afternoon, your cousin Emily arrives for tea. She's family, so the rules relax just slightly. You can sit a little more comfortably. The conversation can stray toward shared memories, childhood mischief, even mild opinions about the weather. But never gossip, never scandal, and certainly never anything that might suggest strong emotion. You pour the tea Darjeeling, steeped exactly 4 minutes, and serve small cakes on delicate porcelain. You discuss the sermon you both heard on Sunday, the new vicar's pleasing voice, the charity bazaar next month. Emily mentions she's taken up watercolor painting. You compliment her restraint, not too vivid, I hope, And she laughs, understanding the unspoken rule. Art, like women, must be modest. This tea with Emily isn't just hospitality. It's practice. A rehearsal for the kind of refined, measured social interaction expected of you at every turn. Even with family, you are always on. After she leaves, you have a few precious hours before dinner. And so, as the grey London light softens into dusk, you sit at the pianoforte in the corner of the drawing room. You lift the full board, smooth your skirts over the bench, and place your hands on the keys. You play for exactly 1 hour, no more, no less. Because while musical accomplishment is admired in a young lady, ambition is not. You must be skilled enough to entertain guests, but never so passionate that you seem to want to perform. That would suggest you crave attention, and attention, for a woman, is a dangerous currency. So you play Mozart, elegant, controlled, emotion held in check like a well-bred horse on a tight rein, no swaying, no dramatic flourishes. Just clean notes, precise phrasing, and a face as calm as still water. Even your breathing is measured. Because someone, your mother, a servant, a neighbor passing by the window might be listening, and they'll judge not just your talent, but your character. Dinner arrives at 7. Not a grand affair, just your family. But still, you change, again, because Victorians change clothes like clockwork. Morning dress, afternoon dress, dinner dress, evening dress. Each outfit calibrated to the hour, the activity, the audience. Your dinner gown is slightly finer than your day dress, silk instead of wool, a touch more lace at the collar, but nothing as elaborate as what you wear to a ball. At the table, conversation flows in gentle currents. Your father discusses business with your brother, railways, investments, the price of coal. Your mother mentions her work with the parish poor fund. You listen attentively, offering a quiet opinion only when directly addressed. You take small bites, chew silently, never reach across the table. Never speak with your mouth full, never laugh too loudly. Because even in the privacy of your own home, propriety is never off duty. After dinner, the gender divide reasserts itself. Your father and brother retire to the study for brandy and cigars, a world of smoke, politics, and unchecked opinion. You and your mother return to the drawing room, where the air is clean, the lighting soft, and the conversation carefully curated. Perhaps you play the piano again, this time for family only, or return to your needlework, or read aloud from an improving book, something moral, historical, botanical. Nothing romantic, nothing that stirs the passions. Novels like Wuthering Heights, hidden under your mattress, if you're brave. But never, ever read in the drawing room. By 10 o'clock, the house grows quiet. Servants dim the lamps, the fire is banked, and you retreat upstairs, where Mary helps you out of your layers, corset first, then petticoats, then gown, each removal like shedding armor. You slip into your flannel nightgown, buttoned to the chin. The room is dark except for the faint glow of embers in the grate. And finally you're alone with your thoughts. You lie in bed, listening to the distant clatter of a late-night carriage, the sigh of wind through soot-streaked trees, and in the silence, you let yourself feel what you've spent all day suppressing, the memory of your mother's words. He asked after you, the image of Thomas Fairchild, standing just so at the edge of the ballroom, offering his hand. The quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, he sees you, not just the performance. But even in your private thoughts, you temper it. Because in this world of rigid rules and hidden hearts, even hope must be restrained. Too much of it, and you risk disappointment. Too little, and you lose the dream entirely. So you hold it lightly, like a candle in a drafty room, protected, but never extinguished. Another day of Victorian propriety is done. No missteps, no scandals, no visible cracks in the porcelain surface. But beneath it all, a girl with a racing heart, a mind full of questions, and a quiet, stubborn longing for something real. Tomorrow brings more rules, more rituals, more restraint, but tonight, in the dark, You let yourself imagine a world where kindness matters more than corsets, and where a man might love you not for your perfect posture but for the woman you are when no one else watching. And with that thought tucked close to your heart, you drift towards sleep, ready to do it all again tomorrow. Section 4. The formal dinner party at the Fairchilds. So you've survived the morning calls, the needlework, the piano practice, and the endless layers of restraint. But tonight is different. Tonight, you're re-stepping into the grand theatre of Victorian high society, a formal dinner party at the Fairchilds townhouse. And yes, those Fairchilds. Thomas will be there. This isn't just dinner. It's a social audition. Every gesture, every word, every placement at the table will be noted, interpreted, and quietly judged. In Victorian England, a dinner party is less about food and more about hierarchy, performance, and possibility, especially when the man with kind eyes and steady hands is waiting in the drawing room. The day begins with a flurry of preparation. Your mother insists you practice piano 4 to full hours, not 1. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned their new pianoforte, she says, adjusting your posture with a gentle but firm hand. It would be rude to decline if asked to play. And there it is, the unspoken rule. You must be accomplished, but never eager. Refusing a request to perform is impolite. Leaping at the chance, vulgar. You walk a razor's edge between modesty and competence. And tonight, the stakes feel higher than ever. By midday, you take a brisk walk in the park, with your mother, the crisp winter air a welcome reprieve from the soot-choked drawing room. As you stroll past other ladies in their bonnets and gentlemen in their top hats, your mother murmurs a final reminder. At dinner, you'll be seated according to rank. Don't appear surprised by your placement, whatever it may be, because the Victorian dinner table is a map of social power. The hostess sits at the head, the most important male guest to her right, the most important woman to the host's right. Everyone else trickles down like water finding its level. Where you sit tells the room exactly where you stand. And if you're seated near Thomas, well, that would say everything. Back home, the real transformation begins. Mary draws a bath steaming hot, scented with rose oil, and you shiver as you step onto the cold tile floor. Then comes the ritual of evening dress. Your corset laced even tighter than usual. Fashion is suffering, and suffering is fashion. Your crinoline wider, your gown a pale blue silk with delicate lace trim. The neckline dips just enough to reveal your collarbones, the absolute limit of propriety for an unmarried woman. Your hair is swept into an elaborate coiffure, pinned with tiny silk flowers. A whisper of rice powder on your cheeks for that coveted porcelain Palaneva rouge. Only actresses and women of questionable virtue wear obvious makeup. You stare into the mirror. You look like a proper Victorian lady, poised, controlled, impossibly small-waisted, absurdly wide-skirted. You barely recognize yourself, and yet you hope Thomas will. Your father has arranged a carriage. Arriving on foot would be unthinkable, and besides, a carriage signals your family's standing. As it pulls up to the Fairchilds' grand townhouse on one of London's most fashionable streets, light blazes from every window. A footman in gleaming livery opens the door. Inside, the air is warm, fragrant with beeswax and beeswax candles, lit by the soft glow of gaslight, the height of modern luxury. The butler announces you in a clear, resonant voice, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and Miss Jane Wilson. All eyes turn. You keep your expression composed, your spine straight, your steps measured as you make your curtsies to Mr. and Mrs. Fairchild. And then you see him, Thomas, standing beside his mother, taller than you remember, his evening coat emphasizing broad shoulders. He bows not too deep that would seem obsequious, not too shallow that would be disrespectful. Miss Wilson, he says, his voice deeper than you recall. How pleasant to see you again. Mr. Fairchild, you reply, carefully modulating your tone. I trust Oxford agrees with you. It does, thank you, he says. And then just barely a smile touches his lips. Though London has attractions that Oxford cannot claim, is he flirting? In this world of coded language and buried meaning, it's impossible to be sure. Compliments are wrapped in layers of propriety like jewels in velvet, but your heart races all the same. The drawing room fills with guests Charlotte Hartley and her fiancé, elderly dowagers in towering turbans, young men with polished boots and practiced bows. Everyone stands. Sitting before dinner would suggest eagerness to eat vulgar. Conversation hums in low, measured tones. Safe topics only: the weather, a recent sermon, an exhibition at the Royal Academy. Nothing personal, nothing passionate, nothing real. Then the signal, the butler announces dinner. And now begins the choreography of status. The host offers his arm to the highest-ranking lady. The top male guest escorts the hostess. Everyone else pairs off by rank, forming a slow, stately procession into the dining room. You find yourself walking with a middle-aged gentleman you've never met, Thomas. He is escorting an elderly lady with a fabric turban that looks like a collapsed bird's nest. You exchange a glance across the room, just one, and he looks away quickly. Even eye contact is loaded in this world. The dining room dazzles: crystal chandeliers, silver candelabras, polished mahogany gleaming under a forest of forks, spoons, and knives. Each course has its own utensil: fish fork, soup spoon, dessert knife, and using the wrong one is social suicide. You're seated halfway down the table, not at the bottom, a relief, but not near Thomas either. During dinner, you speak only to the guests on your immediate left and right. Never across the table, never too loudly. You take tiny bites. Your corset allows nothing more, and chew in absolute silence. A lady is never seen to eat. She merely samples. The courses unfold like a slow ritual: soup, fish, roast beef, game, pudding. Between bites, you navigate conversation with the gentleman to your right, who mentions his nephew, Charles Pembroke. You danced at Lady Hamilton's ball. You remember him, stepped on your feet 3 times, talked only of his horse. Yes, you say pleasantly, Mr. Pembroke is an accomplished dancer, a white lie, offered in the service of harmony. This is the art of Victorian conversation. Truth is less important than peace. All the while, you're aware of Thomas across the table. When your eyes meet, he looks away, but not before you see something warm in his gaze. In a world where every glance is monitored, that fleeting connection feels like a secret whispered in a crowded room. Then after dessert comes the most rigidly gendered moment of the evening. Mrs. Fairchild catches the eye of the highest-ranking lady and rises. The signal. All the women stand as one and leave the men to their port, cigars, and serious talk. You follow the rustle of silk and crinoline back to the drawing room, a space now reserved for the fiction that ladies are too delicate for smoke, strong drink, or business. In truth, it's also a chance to use the chamber pot, no small feat beneath 15 pounds of skirt, and to assess the social landscape. You settle into conversational clusters. Mrs. Fairchild ensures Charlotte sits with her future mother-in-law, clear stamp of approval. Then, the moment arrives. Will you play for us, Miss Wilson? Your stomach drops. You can't refuse, it would be rude. But you mustn't seem eager. If you wish it, Mrs. Fairchild, you say modestly, though I'm sure there are more accomplished musicians present. Nonsense, she replies. We've all heard of your talent. You move to the pianoforte, arranging your enormous skirt on the narrow bench. You choose Mozart, technically impressive, but not flamboyant. No swaying, no grimacing, no emotion that might suggest you feel the music. When you finish, the applause is polite. You return to your seat, hands trembling slightly, but your face perfectly calm. A proper Victorian lady never shows nerves. Half an hour later, the men rejoin you, smelling of cigars, cheeks flushed from port. Thomas makes his way to your side, stopping to speak with others first, never too eager. When he finally reaches you, he says, I enjoyed your performance, Miss Wilson. Mozart, was it not? His sonata in C major, you reply. You play with great feeling. He adds, then quickly amends, but appropriate restraint, of course. And there it is again, the dance, compliment wrapped in caution. Interest masters observation. You discuss classics, music, art, impersonal topics with intimate subtext. Are you compatible? Are your minds aligned? Will your temperaments suit? Mrs. Fairchild watches from across the room, her expression satisfied. She invited you for a reason. After nearly an hour of circulating, conversing, and maintaining perfect posture, the first guests begin to leave at precisely 11 o'clock, signaling that it's acceptable for others to depart. Your father gives a subtle nod. Time to go. You make your farewells, thanking the hosts with just the right blend of warmth and reserve. Thomas bows to you one last time. Until we meet again, Miss Wilson. Good evening, Mr. Fairchild, you reply, your voice giving away nothing of the hope fluttering in your chest. Outside, the carriage waits. As you settle into the seat, you allow yourself a small sigh of relief. No missteps, no scandals, and Thomas, he seemed genuinely attentive. A successful evening, your father declares, high praise indeed. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned they're hosting a small musical evening next week. Your mother adds, we're to receive an invitation. Your heart beats a little faster. Another chance, another step in this intricate, invisible courtship. Back home, as Mary helps you out of your layers, you sit at your dressing table and stare at your reflection. Behind the composed mask, your mind races. Did he seek me out? What did his mother's gaze mean? Will he call? In Victorian England, dating is like playing chess while blindfolded. Every move matters. Half the time, you don't even know you've made one. And yet tonight, for the first time, you feel like you might be winning. Somewhere out there, in the fog-draped streets of London, Thomas Fairchild is perhaps thinking of you too. And in a world of rigid rules and hidden hearts, that's enough for now. Section 5. Courtship begins, calls, gifts, and public declarations. So you've survived the formal dinner party at the Fairchilds. You played Mozart with perfect restraint. You exchanged glances with Thomas across a sea of crystal and candlelight. And now, something has shifted, because the very next day, yes, the very next day, Mary appears at the parlour door with news that sends your pulse racing. Mr. Thomas Fairchild is here, miss. He's asking if you and your mother are receiving visitors. Your heart leaps. But your face remains a mask of perfect composure. Because in Victorian England, a young lady never shows eagerness, not even when the man with kind eyes and steady hands appears on your doorstep unannounced. You have 30 seconds to prepare. You smooth your skirts, check your hair in the small mirror above the fireplace, and pick up your book of botany, suitably improving, never romantic, arranging yourself to look naturally occupied. As if you hadn't just spent the night replaying his voice in your mind, the door opens, and there he is. Thomas Fairchild stands in the doorway, taller in daylight, his formal morning coat perfectly tailored, his cravat tied with quiet precision. He removes his top hat the moment he steps inside. A gentleman never wears his hat indoors but keeps his gloves on until seated. Every detail is a silent performance of propriety. Miss Wilson, he says, bowing just so, I hope I find you well today. Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild, you reply, gesturing to a chair. My mother will join us momentarily. And there it is, the first unspoken rule of Victorian courtship. You are never, ever left alone with a gentleman caller. Not for a second, not even if your heart is pounding like a drum in your chest. Your mother must be present for the entire visit. Even stepping out to fetch a handkerchief would be scandalous. When your mother enters, Thomas rises immediately. A gentleman always stands when a lady enters and the real dance begins. He's not here just to see you. Oh no, he's come as his mother's emissary, bearing an invitation to a small musical evening next Tuesday. He could have sent a servant with a card, but he didn't. He came himself. And in this world of coded gestures, that means everything. Your mother accepts gracefully. Then Thomas adds carefully, respectfully, that his mother would be grateful if Miss Wilson might consider performing. Ah, now you understand. You're not just a guest, you're being evaluated. Mrs. Fairchild wants to show you off to her circle. This is the Victorian version of a job interview with marriage as the prize. You accept modestly, of course, though I'm sure your mother has engaged more accomplished musicians. Thomas shakes his head. None that I'm aware of. Your talent would be the highlight of the evening. That's dangerously close to a direct compliment. In fact, it's practically scandalous. But your mother steps in smoothly, redirecting the conversation toward mutual acquaintances and upcoming social events. Thomas addresses most of his remarks to her, only occasionally glancing at you. This is proper form. A suitor courts the family, not just the girl. After exactly 15 minutes, the prescribed length of a morning call, he stands. I've taken enough of your time. Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson, he bows. His eyes linger on you for just a heartbeat longer than strictly necessary. And then he's gone. The moment the door closes, your mother turns to you with a knowing smile. Well, it seems the Fairchilds have taken an interest in you. You pretend mild surprise. Mrs. Fairchild is very kind to include us, but your mother isn't fooled. It wasn't Mrs. Fairchild who just called on us, was it? Before you can respond, the bell rings again. More visitors. The morning call circuit never sleeps. Charlotte Hartley arrives with her mother, radiant in her new engagement. But then she leans in, voice low. Have you heard about Mrs. Pembroke? And just like that, the conversation turns to scandal. Mrs. Pembroke was seen riding alone in a carriage with Mr. Forster, a bachelor of dubious reputation. No chaperone, no footman, just the two of them, hidden behind closed doors on wheels. In Victorian London, that's social suicide. A married woman caught in such a situation is ruined. A man, he might get a few raised eyebrows at his club. The double standard is alive, well, and ruthlessly enforced. Watching Charlotte's happiness, you feel not jealousy, but anticipation. Will this be you soon, planning a wedding, choosing a trousseau? The thought is thrilling and terrifying. Later that day, at a charity committee meeting, the whispers begin again. Emma Parker, always watching, always calculating, casually asks if you've heard Thomas is back from Oxford. When you confirm being invited to the Fairchild's musical evening, her smile tightens. How lovely. Perhaps you'll play for us. You're so accomplished. It's not a compliment, it's a challenge. Emma has long set her sights on Thomas Fairchild. And now she sees you as competition. By the time you get home, you're exhausted not from walking or talking, but from the constant vigilance required to navigate this world. Every word, every glance, every pause must be measured, controlled, restrained. But then your brother James arrives home from his club, full of news. I saw Thomas Fairchild today, he says, grinning. He asked quite a few questions about you, Jane, whether you enjoy riding, what books you read, if you're interested in art exhibitions. This is significant. In Victorian courtship, information gathering is the first real step toward intention. Thomas isn't just being polite, he's assessing compatibility. And he likes what he's hearing. Your mother, pleased but cautious, begins planning your wardrobe. That blue silk is lovely, but you'll need something new for the musical evening. A new dress isn't just fabric, it's an investment in your future. And your mother doesn't make those lightly. The next few days blur into a whirlwind of preparation. The dressmaker arrives. You practice piano 4 hours, selecting Mendelssohn's Song without words, beautiful, lyrical, but never overly passionate. Perfect for a proper young lady. Then on the morning of the musical evening, an unexpected package arrives. Delivered by the Fairchild's footman, your hands tremble as you unwrap it. Inside, a small volume of Tennyson's latest poetry, and a card, in Thomas's strong, masculine hand. Miss Wilson, I thought you might enjoy these verses. The one marked on page 43 reminded me of your playing. Respectfully, T. Fairchild, you've flipped to page 43, a poem about music. One line delicately underlined. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. Your breath catches. This is not proper. Gifts between unmarried men and women are technically forbidden. But Thomas has bent the rules just enough to show his feelings, while still giving you plausible deniability. If anyone asks, It's just a book. But you and he both know the truth. You hide it in your drawer. Mary watches you with knowing eyes. Servants always know first. That evening, you arrive at the Fairchilds in your new green silk gown chosen to complement your eyes, and perhaps to stand out among the sea of pastels. Emma Parker is there, wearing a similar shade. "What a coincidence, Miss Wilson," she says, her smile sharp as a pin. The competition is on. During the musical program, Thomas does something bold. As you prepare to play, he steps forward. "May I turn pages for you, Miss Wilson? This is no small thing." Page turning places him right beside you, the piano a position of intimacy rarely allowed between unmarried people. It's a public declaration. Everyone will note his attention to you. You begin to play. He turns each page with quiet precision. Once, his hand brushes yours, just for a second. But you feel it like lightning. Your playing never falters, but inside, your world tilts on its axis. When you finish, he offers his hand to help you rise. Another liberty, another signal. Mrs. Fairchild beams. Emma Parker looks like she's swallowed vinegar. After the performance, Thomas brings you a cup of punch, subtle but unmistakable. Later, you catch your father's deep in conversation by the fireplace. Your mother whispers, your father is quite impressed with the Fairchild's banking ventures. Oh, of course. In Victorian England, love and logistics go hand in hand. A good match isn't just about affection, it's about alliances, estates, and investments. As the evening winds down, Thomas approaches your family in the entrance hall, the moment you've been waiting for. "Miss Wilson," he says, voice steady, but eyes bright, "might I call on you tomorrow afternoon? There's an exhibition at the Royal Academy. I thought you might enjoy it, with your parents' permission, of course." He glances at your father. This is it, a direct request to court you officially. Not just a social call, but a step toward engagement. Your father nods, pleased. "We would be honored to receive you, Mr. Fairchild, outside. The carriage awaits." Thomas helps you step up, his hand warm on yours for one fleeting second. As you drive away, you glimpse him still standing in the doorway, watching you leave. And for the first time, his expression isn't restrained by propriety. It's open, hopeful, real. Back in the dark of the carriage, your mother squeezes your hand. No words are needed. The courtship has begun not with a grand gesture, but with a poetry book, a page turned, a shared glance across a crowded room. In a world where every feeling must be hidden, these small acts are louder than any declaration. And tomorrow, you'll walk through an art gallery with Thomas Fairchild at your side, your mother as chaperone, society as audience, and your future hanging delicately in the balance. But for now, you close your eyes and let yourself feel it. The quiet thrill of being chosen. The weight of the sapphire ring you haven't yet received. The promise in a man's voice when he says your name like it matters. In Victorian England, love doesn't shout. It whispers, and if you're very, very lucky, you get to listen. Section 6. The exhibition and the threat of scandal. So you've just survived the musical evening at the Fairchilds. Thomas turned your pages at the piano. He sent you a book of Tennyson with a line underlined just for you. And now, he's asked formally, respectfully, with your father's permission to escort you to the Royal Academy exhibition. This isn't just another social outing. This is public courtship. In Victorian England, when a gentleman escorts a young lady to a public event, especially with her mother as chaperone, it is not subtle. It's a declaration. By tomorrow, half of London society will know that Thomas Fairchild is serious about you. And that means every glance, every word, every step you take together will be watched and judged. The morning dawns unusually clear, a rare gift in London's fog-choked winters. Mary helps you dress with extra care. Today calls for your burgundy wool walking dress, fashionable but not flashy, modest but undeniably elegant. The matching pelisse and bonnet are secured with pins that feel like tiny anchors holding your dignity and your future in place. "You look lovely, miss," Mary says softly. If you don't mind my saying so, you thank her, but inside, your stomach flutters. This is the first time you'll be seen in public with Thomas as is intended. And in this world, appearances aren't just everything, they're all there is. Downstairs, your mother is already waiting, dressed in her finest day dress, gloves pristine, posture perfect. She's not just your chaperone, she's your shield, your witness, your silent negotiator in the theatre of courtship. Remember, Jane, she says as you wait for the doorbell, enthusiasm is unbecoming in a young lady. Mr. Fairchild should feel he's earning your regard, not that it's being freely given. You nod, though privately you think how exhausting it is to pretend not to care when you care so deeply. At precisely 2 o'clock, the bell rings. Thomas is punctual, another mark in his favour. He enters the drawing room with that same quiet confidence, bowing first to your mother, then to you. Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson, I trust you're both well today. His eyes flicker to you, and for just a heartbeat, his composure softens. That colour suits you very well, Miss Wilson, he adds, then quickly amends. As Mrs. Wilson's daughter, you've clearly inherited her excellent taste, a perfect Victorian compliment, flattering you through your mother, avoiding any hint of impropriety. You lower your eyes modestly. You're very kind, Mr. Fairchild. Outside, his family's carriage awaits, handsome, polished, bearing the Fairchild crest on the door. Another signal. In a society where every detail speaks, this isn't just transportation, it's a statement of intention. You and your mother sit on one bench. Thomas faces you, knees nearly touching yours beneath the layers of skirt and crinoline. As the carriage rolls through London's bustling streets, he points out landmarks, St. Paul's, the new gasworks, a particularly fine bookshop, but always addresses his remarks to your mother, glancing at you only occasionally. Everything is proper, everything is controlled, and yet, the air between you hums with something unspoken. At the Royal Academy, Thomas pays for your tickets himself, another quiet assertion of his role as your suitor. Inside, the galleries are crowded with fashionable society, ladies in silk and lace, gentlemen in top hats, artists sketching in corners, children being scolded for pointing. You move slowly through the rooms, admiring Turner's luminous seascapes, grand historical portraits, delicate miniatures. Thomas stays close, offering quiet commentary on brushwork and composition, his intelligence evident, his taste refined. You feel seen not just as a proper young lady, but as someone whose mind matters. And then of course she appears, Miss Wilson, Mrs. Wilson. Emma Parker's voice cuts through the hushed gallery like a dropped teacup. She sweeps towards you with her mother in tow, her dress a near identical shade of burgundy, clearly chosen to mirror yours. Coincidence? Not in this world. What a pleasant surprise, she says, though her eyes dart straight to Thomas. Mr. Fairchild, how lovely to see you. She positions herself beside him, gesturing to a nearby landscape. Don't you think the artist has captured the light beautifully? It reminds me of the view from my aunt's estate in the Lake District. You must visit sometime, the landscapes are breathtaking. It's a bold move, an invitation wrapped in scenery, a claim staked in public. But Thomas handles it with flawless Victorian diplomacy. I'm sure the Lake District is lovely, Miss Parker, he says smoothly, but at present I'm committed to business in London. Then, without missing a beat, he turns to you. Miss Wilson and I were just discussing this portrait. The technique is quite remarkable. He gently guides you and your mother away, leaving Emma with a tight smile and a reputation for overreach. Score 1 for Thomas's social grace, and your heart swells just a little more. But the real danger isn't Emma. As you pause for tea in the Academy's small refreshment room, you notice him, a middle-aged man at a nearby table, expensively dressed, watching your group with a gaze that lingers too long. There's something in his expression, calculating, predatory, that makes your skin prickle. You lean toward Thomas. That gentleman seems to be watching us rather intently. Thomas follows your glance and his face darkens. Ah, Lord Barrington, your mother stiffens. I wasn't aware he'd returned to London society. Before you can ask who he is, Lord Barrington rises and approaches. Thomas steps slightly in front of you, a subtle but unmistakable shield. Fairchild, Barrington purrs, bowing with theatrical flourish. Mrs. Wilson. And this must be the lovely Miss Wilson I've heard so much about. His eyes rake over you, not with admiration, but with possession. This isn't the respectful gaze of a gentleman. It's the look of a man who sees vulnerability and opportunity. Thomas's voice remains polite, but I scold, Lord Barrington. I wasn't aware you were back in London. Oh, just returned from the continent, Barrington replies, still staring at you. Paris has its charms, but I find London's young ladies incomparable. Then, the trap, perhaps Miss Wilson would honour me with an introduction. Your mother is cornered. Social rules demand she grant the request, but Lord Barrington's reputation makes him poison to an unmarried girl's name. She handles it with masterful restraint. I'm afraid we're just leaving, Lord Barrington, perhaps another time. A polite rebuff, but a rebuff nonetheless. Barrington's smile tightens, but he can't press further without revealing his true nature. As you leave the tea room, Thomas positions himself between you and Barrington, his body language protective yet impeccably proper. Once safely in another gallery, he speaks low to your mother. I apologize for that encounter. Mrs. Wilson, had I known Lord Barrington would be present, I would have suggested a different outing. Later, your brother James will tell you the truth. Lord Barrington is a raker man who preys on young women, leaving ruined reputations in his wake. Last season, he was linked to the Matthews girl, whose indiscretion, real or imagined, sent her into exile in Scotland. In Victorian England, a man like Barrington can flirt with scandal and walk away unscathed. But for a young lady, one misstep, one unchaperoned moment and your life is over. Back in the carriage, Thomas is quieter than before. I hope the encounter didn't spoil your enjoyment of the exhibition. Miss Wilson, not at all, you assure him. The art was far too impressive to be overshadowed by a brief social awkwardness. He looks relieved, then serious. I should mention, Lord Barrington is not received in the best houses. His behaviour toward young ladies has been less than honourable. It's as direct as a Victorian gentleman can be, a warning wrapped in discretion, meant to protect your delicate sensibilities, while still making the threat clear. When he escorts you home, he bows formally at your door, but his eyes hold yours a moment longer than usual. Might I call again tomorrow? There's a matter I'd like to discuss with Mr. Wilson. If he's available, your heart stops. A matter to discuss with your father. In the language of Victorian courtship, there's only one thing that means. Your mother answers smoothly. My husband will be at home tomorrow afternoon. Around 3 o'clock would be convenient. 3 o'clock it is, Thomas confirms. And as he turns to leave, he adds softly, until tomorrow, Miss Wilson, until tomorrow. Mr. Fairchild, you reply, your voice steady, your hands trembling in your lap. Inside, your mother allows herself a small, triumphant smile. Well, Jane, I believe Mr. Fairchild intends to speak with your father about his intentions toward you. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. Because in this world of rigid rules and hidden hearts, this is the closest thing to a promise. And tomorrow could change everything. But tonight, as you lie in bed, you don't think of sapphire rings or trousseaux or wedding breakfasts. You think of Thomas stepping in front of you, of his voice, low and protective, of the way he looked at you not as a social asset, not as a proper young lady in a burgundy dress, but as someone worth defending. In a society where reputation is everything, where one wrong glance can ruin you, knowing you have someone who will stand between you and the wolves, that's worth more than all the rules in the world. Section 7. Engagement, wedding, and the start of married life. So the exhibition is over. Lord Barrington has been deflected. Thomas Fairchild stood between you and the wolves. And now, standing on your doorstep in the fading afternoon light, he asks the question that changes everything. Might I call again tomorrow? There's a matter I'd like to discuss with Mr. Wilson. If he's available, your heart stops. Because in the language of Victorian courtship, there's only one matter a gentleman discusses with a young lady's father, and that matter is you. The next morning dawns with unbearable slowness and impossible speed. You dress with extra care, of a pale blue morning dress the colour Thomas once admired, your hair arranged to soften your features, while still appearing properly restrained. Your father, unusually, works from home. He wears his best waistcoat. A fresh flower adorns his lapel. No one speaks of Thomas's visit, but the air hums with anticipation. At precisely 5 minutes to 3, you and your mother retreat to the drawing room. You pick up your needlework not because you can focus, but because a proper Victorian lady must never appear to be waiting. Your stitches grow crooked. Your mother abandons her book entirely. The bell rings, footsteps in the hall. Voices murmuring, then silence. 20 agonizing minutes pass. And then your father appears in the doorway, expression unreadable. Behind him, Thomas impeccably dressed, but uncharacteristically nervous. "My dear," your father says to your mother, "Mr. Fairchild has something he wishes to discuss with Jane. Perhaps we might give them a few moments." Your mother's eyebrow lifts. This is highly irregular. Unmarried couples are never left alone, not even for a minute. But your father nods, and your mother rises with a pointed look at Thomas that clearly says, "Behave honourably, or face the consequences." And then miraculously you are alone with Thomas Fairchild. Well, not truly alone. The door remains open. Your parents linger just out of sight, but in the rigid world of Victorian propriety, this is as close to privacy as you'll ever get. He stands by the fireplace, the composed mask he wears in public finally slipping. "Miss Wilson," he begins, then stops, swallows. "Jane." He says your name for the first time. Not Miss Wilson, not my dear, just Jane. And in that single word, you hear everything: hope, vulnerability, longing. I've spoken with your father, and received his blessing to address you formally. His voice is steady, but his hands tremble slightly at his sides. From our first meeting, I've been struck by your intelligence, your grace, your kind heart. These past weeks have only deepened my admiration and my affection. He takes a breath, looks you straight in the eyes. What I'm trying to say rather poorly, I'm afraid, is that I hold you in the highest esteem. And, Jane Wilson, would you do me the very great honor of accepting my hand in marriage? The words hang in the air like incense, sacred, trembling, final. You're supposed to be surprised, overwhelmed, modestly reluctant. But the truth is, you've known this was coming. And yet, hearing it spoken aloud, seeing the raw hope in his eyes, it steals your breath. "Mr. Fairchild," you begin, then correct yourself, as propriety demands, but your heart insists. "Thomas, I am deeply honored by your proposal." Your voice catches, not from performance but from feeling. "Nothing would make me happier than to accept." His face transforms. The careful reserve he's worn like armor in every ballroom, every drawing room, every public moment, it falls away. And for the first time, you see the man beneath the gentleman, joyful, relieved, utterly human. "Jane," he says, "your name a caress. You've made me the happiest of men." He extends his hand. "May I?" You place yours in his, warm, real, shockingly intimate in a world where even a brush of fingers is scandalous. Then he reaches into his waistcoat and produces a small velvet box. Inside, a sapphire ring, deep blue as twilight, surrounded by tiny diamonds, his grandmother's. "It's lovely," you whisper as he slides it onto your finger. The weight of it is strange but right. This ring isn't just jewelry. It's a public declaration. Tomorrow, all of London will know. Jane Wilson is no longer available. The moment is interrupted by your parents' return. Victorian propriety reasserts itself. Thomas steps back, but his eyes never leave you. Champagne is poured, toasts are made. Your father and Thomas retreat to discuss marriage settlements because in this world, love is never enough. Marriage is a financial contract, your dowry, his income, property rights, future security. Romance is the garnish, economics is the meal. They settle on a date, 3 months from now. Long enough for a proper trousseau, short enough to avoid gossip. An engagement that drags on suggests reluctance. Or worse, impropriety. The next weeks blur into a whirlwind of preparation. Your engagement is announced in the Times. Congratulatory calls pour in. Your mother and Mrs. Fairchild meet weekly to plan the wedding breakfast. And you begin assembling your trousseau, the chest of linens, gowns, gloves, bonnets, night dresses, and undergarments a bride brings to her marriage. Every stitch you've ever embroidered, handkerchiefs, pillowcases, sheets, was practice for this moment. Your wedding dress is pure white silk, Queen Victoria's legacy, adorned with Brussels lace, a train long enough to impress, but not so long as to seem vain. White satin slippers, a veil so delicate it seems spun from moonlight. Through it all, you see Thomas, but never alone. Even engaged, you're chaperoned. Walks in the park with your mother trailing discreetly behind. Dinner parties where you sit side by side but speak in measured tones. The only true privacy comes in letters, proper, respectful, yet increasingly tender. In them, he reveals a depth you never saw in society, his hopes for your future, his admiration for your mind, his quiet yearning to be a husband worthy of you. 2 weeks before the wedding, the Fairchilds host a family dinner. Your cousin Emily laughs at something Thomas's cousin William says. Perhaps another match in the making, Thomas murmurs. And then, softer, not as well as we do. The simple truth of it sends colour rushing to your cheeks. Even now, his directness can undo you. The night before the wedding, your mother comes to your room as Mary brushes your hair for the last time in your childhood home. She dismisses the maid and gives you the talk, the Victorian version, at least. Marriage brings physical intimacies. She begins, awkwardly. It is a wife's duty to submit to her husband's needs. It may be uncomfortable at first, but a lady endures with dignity. She doesn't mention pleasure, doesn't suggest you might want it. In her world, a woman's body exists for duty and children, not joy. But then she softens. I believe you and Thomas will be very happy. He seems a kind man, and he clearly adores you. That's what you hold on to. Your wedding day dawns clear and bright at St. George's Church, Hanover Square, the fashionable choice for society. You walk down the aisle on your father's arm. And there, at the altar, stands Thomas. His eyes meet yours, and in them you see something you've never seen before, unfiltered awe. As if you're not just his bride, but his miracle. The ceremony is dignified, traditional. You promise to love, honor, and obey. He slips a gold band onto your finger to join the sapphire. The vicar pronounces you man and wife. Thomas lifts your veil and kisses you. Not on the lips, but on the cheek, chaste, proper. And just like that, you are Mrs. Thomas Fairchild. The wedding breakfast is elegant, but not ostentatious champagne, delicate cakes, speeches full of hope. You sit beside your husband, still dazed by the whirlwind. Are you happy, Jane? He asks quietly. Very happy, you reply and mean it. Afterward, you change into a smart traveling outfit, burgundy wool, practical for the journey. Goodbyes are emotional but restrained. No tears, no clinging. Excessive feeling is vulgar. And then you're in the carriage, alone, truly alone, for the first time. Thomas takes your hand. His thumb strokes your palm. Well, Mrs. Fairchild, shall we begin our adventure? You smile a real smile, free of performance. Yes, the carriage rolls toward Kent, toward his family's country estate. As London fades behind you, so do the rigid rules of courtship. No chaperons, no coded glances, just you and him, talking freely for the first time about books, dreams, the countryside unfolding in golden light. At dusk, the house appears, warm red brick, white trimmed windows, lights glowing like promises. Servants stand ready. The butler opens the door. Thomas steps down, then turns to help you. His hands at your waist are strong, sure. For a moment, you stand close in the twilight, no longer bound by the rules, that governed your courtship. Shall we? He asks, offering his arm. You place your hand on it. Feel the solid warmth beneath his coat. Yes. You say, let's go home. You climb the steps not as Miss Jane Wilson, constrained by every rule of maidenhood, but as Mrs. Thomas Fairchild, stepping into a new life. There will be new expectations, managing servants, hosting dinners, charitable duties, perhaps motherhood. The cage of Victorian womanhood hasn't vanished, it's just changed shape. But as Thomas's fingers intertwine with yours, as his eyes meet yours with warmth and promise, you realize something profound. Within these walls of propriety, you've found something real. Not just a suitable match, not just a social alliance, but a partnership built on respect, quiet understanding, and the love that speaks loudest in the spaces between the rules. The stars appear one by one above the Kent countryside. Inside your new home, a fire crackles in the grate. And for the first time in your life, you are exactly where you're meant to be. So close your eyes, breathe deep, and let the echoes of Victorian London fade into dreams. As your new life, your real life begins. And so, our journey through a Victorian woman's world comes to a close, not with a grand finale, but with something far more powerful, a quiet beginning. We started in the dark, with horsehair mattresses and coal-smudged windows, bound by corsets and codes so strict they turned breathing into an act of discipline. We navigated morning calls that happened in the afternoon, dinners where every fork had a name, and courtships conducted in glances and poetry books slipped through servants' hands. We faced the ever-present threat of scandal, where one unchaperoned moment could erase a lifetime of propriety, and learned that in this world, reputation wasn't just everything. It was the only thing you truly owned. But beneath all those layers of silk, steel, and social expectation was something human, something real, because for all its rigidity, Victorian society wasn't just about rules. It was about meaning. Every gesture, every silence, every carefully chosen word carried weight. And in that weight, people found ways to connect, to love, to choose, to hope. Jane didn't just marry Thomas because it was proper. She married him because, in a world that demanded she hide her heart, he saw it anyway. And he loved her not in spite of her restraint, but because of the strength it took to live within it. That's the quiet truth of the Victorian era. Love didn't roar, it whispered. And if you were listening, if you knew how to read the language of gloves, glances, and underlined poetry, you could hear it everywhere. So the next time you scroll past a Victorian etiquette meme or laugh at how absurd their rules seem, remember this: they weren't just being fussy. They were building a world where dignity, respect, and order mattered, sometimes at the cost of freedom, yes, but always in pursuit of something they believed was noble. And maybe, just maybe, there's something in that we've lost, and something worth remembering. Thank you for walking through 1850 with me. If you've enjoyed this journey, I'd be so grateful if you like the video or subscribe, but only if it truly moved you. And drop a comment below. Where are you tuning in from? And what time is it there? I still can't get over the fact that someone in Melbourne might be sipping tea at dawn, while someone in Lisbon is falling asleep to these stories of corsets and candlelight. Until next time, keep questioning the past. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about who we are and who we might still become. Good night.